Good evening, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus. My name is Faraz Patel. Would like to thank you, the viewer, for staying with us on Hilaal TV, DSTV channel 347. It would be hard to not have a heavy heart over the past weekend, knowing that yet another whistleblower, yet another witness in such an important commission like the Madlanga Commission had his life taken by gunmen, thugs, criminal entities. This is the story, of course, of Marius van der Merwe. He was known as Witness D, and he was killed on Friday evening. And this wasn't the first time it had happened. This was a second attempt on his life in 2 weeks. Now, the former Ekurhuleni Metropolitan Police Department officer and private security firm owner was shot outside his home in Brakpan. He had previously testified at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry into police corruption and criminal collusion. There, he implicated suspended top cop Julius Mkhwanazi in criminal activity. This was supposed to be a normal evening for van der Merwe. He would arrive at home with his family just after 8 p.m. and have dinner. But two assailants then reportedly ambushed him when he was opening the gate of his property. And yet again, it raises the question when it comes to the protection of whistleblowers, and really, where are we as a country right now in protecting the people who are supposed to report the truth? We saw it with Babita Deokaran. We are now seeing it with van der Merwe. Joining me now to take this discussion forward, I'd like to welcome Neeshan Balton, the Executive Director of the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. Neeshan, always good to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's always a privilege being here. Greetings to your viewers.
No, it's always good to have you on. Neeshan, it's a sigh of relief. It's a heavy heart when you speak to South Africans across who really want justice and accountability. It is a sad moment in this country. And that's just the way to sum it up, isn't it?
No, it's a sad moment, but we should also celebrate the life of somebody like Marius. His bravery to go before this commission and expose the wrongdoings that he was aware of in Ekurhuleni. And therefore, I think, made the country much more cognizant of the levels of corruption and maladministration within the Metro Police there, and the linkage between that and the national claims made by the Provincial Commission of KZN, Mkhwanazi as well. And we need to draw those links. So I think we must celebrate his contribution to that greater awareness. We can't, however, celebrate his death, which I think it could have been unavoidable, could have been avoided, had there been a greater foresight on security and protection for him.
Here's the thing, Neeshan, and I was listening to an interview with the Justice Minister earlier on, and individuals within the Madlanga Commission saying, look, now we need to enforce security. Well, I'm sorry, it's a bit too late for that, isn't it? Because van der Merwe needed to be protected. Because here's the thing, it's not the first time this has happened. And surely if lightning strikes once, there is when there needs to be a huge alert in terms of protecting such an important witness like van der Merwe.
I agree with you, but anybody who listened to his testimony and who was aware, who would have worked in the Metro, would have been able to place that voice, and they would have matched it to a face. But perhaps that needed to have been done differently. But I think that, my own view is that unless you take somebody like him and you put them into witness protection for 24 hours a day for a lengthy period of time, which we are told he refused in some way. At the heart of it, I think, as important as the witness protection issues are, the fundamental issue is that that corruption leads to the killing of people like him. And the focus must be on the extent of corruption, the need to get rid of it, and what is it that beyond whistleblowers all of us need to be doing.
Neeshan, you mentioned something quite important about witness protection programs. So if we are to be believed, Marius van der Merwe probably said, I don't need witness protection program. And I'm sure he has his reasons. And unfortunately, hearing it from him now is practically impossible because he is deceased. But in a commission like this, when the revelations that are coming out from it are so stark, are so dangerous to the country's interests, how important does witness protection programs become when you just understand the depth of the alleged corruption that is happening within the security parameters of our country?
Look, it's very important, but I think the willingness of any witness to be part of that program is absolutely paramount. Now, if you're running a business like he was, he probably would have weighed up the consequences of going into witness protection or having far greater protection around him, and what that would mean for his personal life as well as that of his business. And I'm sure all whistleblowers have to grapple with these kinds of decisions. The fact that he owned a security company might have given him a slightly higher level of confidence in terms of protecting himself. And that could very well have been the case. So that doesn't absolve the authorities from having put up basics, at least around his house, to ensure that his house, when he came and when he left, was protected. As a minimum, I think that is what should have been done. That it wasn't, I think the commission itself will have to answer for those things. I also think the commission will have to grapple with what it means for the countless number of witnesses who might still have to appear should they get an extension, and what the cost thereof might be. Remember, they have a very limited budget and time frame. So all of this would weigh up on decisions that a commission like this would have to make.
Neeshan, on ENCA, he had mentioned that his life is in danger and that the potential of him being killed is a possibility. And I stand to be corrected, this was even before the first attempt of his life had happened. Herein lies, I think, the big question or the big concern is that, and you've mentioned it quite well, that there's supposed to be something done from the state to try and at least protect witnesses in this matter. Again, was this a mistrick from security authorities in not picking up comments that he had made to try and say, well, he's an important witness in this protection program. He's an important witness within this commission in trying to get to the justice, in trying to get to the nitty-gritties of everything. More needs to be done. Was this a mistrick in your view, Neeshan?
I'm not sure what you mean by a mistrick.
No, mistrick from government in terms of protecting him. Now, I understand that, of course, he's got his own security company, but should more have been done? Maybe added security, especially in this regards.
No, obviously more needed to have been done. What exactly was possible, we don't know what the content of the discussion between him and the commission was. And what we also don't know is whether he took his sense of danger and held those discussions with the commission. So without knowing all of that, I mean, the basics would have been really for the commission to have done its own threat analysis with all of the witnesses and to have put in place, at least as I said, for the basics that would have had some kind of visible security, at least at his home, and if it were possible to have had added security with him on all of his day-to-day routine travels and work. But that wasn't done. And I hope that there are lessons learned here for future commissions and witnesses who are going to have to appear before them.
After the break, I continue my conversation with Neeshan Balton. The Justice Minister, Mamloko Kubai, says that more whistleblower laws needs to be enforced to protect whistleblowers currently and in the future. But will that see the light at the end of the day? Because this is not the first time whistleblowers have been slain in telling the truth to expose corruption and malfeasance within South Africa. Do stay tuned. News in Focus returns after the break. Welcome back to News in Focus. I'm still in conversation with the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation Executive Director, Neeshan Balton. Neeshan, before we go to the comments that were made by the Justice Minister, Ahmed Kathrada Foundation and, of course, various other civil societies have really been vocal on the protection of whistleblowers. None more so what we saw with Babita Deokaran in the exposing of the Tembisa Hospital. And here we are 5 years later having a very similar discussion with another witness, with another whistleblower. In terms of whistleblowers in this country, how concerning is the current state within the country right now?
I think it's very concerning that amendments to legislation have taken as long as they have. Immediately after Babita's death, there was a lot of talk from the presidency in particular about needing to revise the legislation. A discussion document was put out. Submissions were made by all kinds of organizations. And the truth is that we don't know where the process is now. And so without enhanced legislation that really moves beyond the old outdated legislation that was there, that in essence did very little to broaden the scope of what is defined by whistleblowers, as well as the scope of all kinds of protective measures and support measures that whistleblowers require. I think it is a testimony to all whistleblowers, and bear in mind that people blow the whistle daily in South Africa through all kinds of hotlines. We only get to read about those who, unfortunately, whose lives get taken in the process. But there are literally thousands of people every day who pick up the hotline or who send messages to different authorities about the wrongdoings that they notice. So the scale of whistleblowing is huge. It's really those who deal with the more high-profile cases that we get to hear about, where enhanced protection is required. That, I think, is where the focus really has been. My own view is that we can have the best legislation in the world. If there is no implementation of that legislation, if there is no resourcing of that legislation, and if fundamentally the policing that's meant to support that legislation is not as corrupt as it currently is, then it's not going to be worth the paper that is written on.
Neeshan, and Dessa, I want to come to at the next question. So in an interview with Bongani Bingwa, Mamloko Kubai mentions that they are looking at the Protected Disclosure Bill, which she says aims to provide legal backing for whistleblowers and establish oversight through the judiciary. Herein lies the challenge. It'll be great on paper, and you've said it, is it worth the paper that it's on? But on the ground, can we trust it to actually have the effectiveness? Because if we listen to what Mkhwanazi had said, Major General Mkhwanazi had said about the rot within the police, the protection that the whistleblowers are going to get on the ground really remains a mystery, doesn't it? So again, it's great to have this on paper, but the practicality of it really remains a mystery.
Well, I think there's an added dimension to what the Minister of Justice has been saying, where I think she was trying to deflect away from her responsibilities by trying to blame the media for this particular killing, and said the media are the ones who leaked his identity without having provided any evidence to back that up. We now hear that the ministry will start its own investigation into how the media is reported. And I think that misses the point completely, because it takes away accountability from the Justice Ministry about why what they had committed to a long time ago has not been done. And as you say, the legislation is the first in a long line of steps that need to be taken. Then it's the resourcing of it. Then it's the implementation. I know that there has been very little real engagement with those who have already come forward as whistleblowers, whether it was at Zondo or other commissions. Now, if you don't start talking to those who have borne the brunt of being whistleblowers in this country and have suffered the negative consequences, I don't know how these measures are being thought about and how they are being developed. I hope that I'm wrong and that they have been consulted effectively. But be that as it may, it cannot take this long to get this basic legislation in place, so that as weak as it might be, it does provide some cover and allows us at least to move beyond where we are now. So I think the minister has to really answer the question of what are the timeframes and what are the consequences if those timeframes are not met. Will she leave her office? Because it's only when we have that kind of level of commitment and accountability that I think people will take these kinds of statements seriously.
Neeshan, as the Madlanga Commission continues, I guess Friday's murder will put a huge magnifying glass on the Commission right now. And I think the scrutiny on any of those that are coming forward, whether it's to testify or whether they are seen as a sort of kingpin within the rot of the criminal justice system, will even have a bigger magnifying glass on this. Can we, and I know I ask this to you as civil society, can we still trust the process, given what we saw on Friday, to deliver justice, whether it's going to be in the next year or two, or even in the next 5 years, that the murder of Marius van der Merwe will not go in vain in terms of the fighting of corruption and malfeasance we find in this country?
No, I think it's, it could be a bit unfair to expect those results from this commission. The commission is really as a tight terms of reference and a time frame. And if I'm right, they are expected to provide their interim report any day now to the president. Should the president accept it, or whether the commission requests further time to extend it for their work, then we would have a sense of what the outcome of its interim work is. But the commission is not only, its work is not only dealt with in terms of the people who are appearing before it. There's a whole range of investigative work that will inform its decision making and set of recommendations. Ultimately, the commission will only be able to make a set of recommendations to the president, very much the way Judge Zondo had done. Whether the president and the presidency and cabinet decides to act on these recommendations is really going to be key. And as we've seen with the Zondo Commission, it takes a hell of a long time to get an understanding of what the implementation timelines are, what are the structures that will enforce that implementation, and how the general public will be kept updated on progress on that implementation. And I think we're going to face the very same questions around the Madlanga Commission. So I think we should just temper expectations of what this commission can and can't do, other than provide a set of recommendations to the president. Look, Judge Madlanga has a stellar reputation from the Concord, and I'm sure would want to ensure that the outcome of his work enjoys the public credibility as that of Justice Zondo had.
Neeshan Balton, always good to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
That's Neeshan Balton, Executive Director of the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. While the deliberations happen, while the discussions of a potential new addition to the legislation are being discussed, while the manhunt for the murderers of Marius van der Merwe continues, spare thought for the family, the wife, the son, because this was a South African citizen who was about to become a witness and expose what we are seeing within EMPD. His life is gone. The family has to bear the brunt of the murder. It's the same situation we saw with Papia Diokeren. This is where we are as a country. And my word, I hope that the truth about the rot that we're seeing in this country from the criminal justice system is given its light of day. After the break, we are going to be shifting the focus to the Palestinian refugees. The Department of Home Affairs has withdrawn the 90-day visa exemption granted to Palestinian travelers carrying ordinary passport. What does this mean now for the Palestinians? I'm going to be speaking to immigration lawyer Ashraf Essop after the break.